when you paint, you should always take into consideration the extremes. You need vibrance, shadow, texture, but most of all, the painting has to have a lot of contradictions on it. If everything was all the same, it would be very boring. So in my work, the way I paint, I like to create a lot of tension with paint, texture, and light. I don't really care about the laws of nature or physics. It is what my dream looks like. So, in a way, the painting is a fantasy, a creation. It is to express something beautiful. I don't really care about being like a Audubon reproduction. That is not my interest. It is just to express creation, my creation. The color black. Now, just how important is this color? It is one of the most critical parts of your painting, because without using black, there is no way you can make your colors play with each other, or even the parts of the painting, even the fish. Without black, it would be impossible to differentiate surfaces and a three-dimensional finish. Black is your anchor. It does everything for your painting. Too much of it, and it renders itself useless. You use just enough, and it brings life to your painting. Black is not the absence of color. It is just the impression that you're trying to give for stronger colors. To me, black is the anchor of all colors. I like painting in this style, this wet and wet technique, using resist and pure silk. I like flowing colors, and one thing I like about painting in silk is the lack of control that you have. I like the paints to talk for themselves. It is just like life, it's very dangerous. You never know what you're going to end up with. Painting to me has to be almost as if you're not really thinking about, in fact, you don't think about what you're doing. You just feel the whole process. Because if you're thinking about what you want, in a way, you're going to end up making old paint, old art. Because it's been done already. And what is the point of painting? You're creating something that has not existed before. You will just stumble upon new techniques, and it has nothing to do with you were looking for them. It just happens. If you're looking for something new, you will not find it anyway. It has to come to you. Look at how the brown immediately pulls your eye into the painting. Now, just a little bit of black, and it intensifies this pull even more. This black here is not shadow. It represents textures that happen in nature. Organisms, decay, growth. The piece is not just about creating light. It's about showing life. You know, life is something that is unpredictable. I never enjoy anything that's predictable, especially art. If I feel you are too cautious or too careful or too much worried about the outcome, it's sort of uninteresting to watch that process. someone painting like that. But when you paint new and fresh, there's a danger, there's an excitement. And this is what I'm trying to create with my art. Out of all that chaos, something very beautiful arrives. I'm not too concerned about failing or failure. Now sometimes a little speck falls out, you just water that down a bit. You know, silk is a dangerous process. You know, paint splashes everywhere. It's not your control. It has nothing to do with your skill. It just happens. And if you're lucky, it doesn't ruin the painting. I like using an impressionistic style when I paint because it just gives you so much flavor. And I like working with dabs and dots of paint. When you look at the surface of the painting and the finish, you'll notice that they're all blurring into each other. Well, this is because I don't want to have something that is so accurate. I want your mind to see something. I want you to play with the painting. I don't care about trying to make a photograph. Photographs are great. They are photographs in themselves, but paintings should reflect the painter's qualities. It has to reflect your mood, your love of life, how exciting you are. It is a very difficult thing to do, to paint in your style. And the reason I'm saying this is it takes a lot of guts to trust something that's doesn't really exist. I mean, what is a style? It is just the way you do something. And I think if you paint with a great feeling inside of yourself and you don't really worry about the outcome, eventually your real style does come out and will shine. If you go on searching for expressing yourself in what you think is your style, I don't think it will ever come. It will be very contrived. I don't like things that are overplanned and thought of, and because that's boring. Have you ever watched a movie and the plot is so predictable that you just can't finish the movie? That happens to me a lot. So I'm very selective on what I watch on television. Not that I watch a lot of TV, but when I do, it has to be something exciting and new, something funny, something that uses my imagination. Well, you see those dots? That's where you use your imagination. You can imagine them, that this is some, what you think, you see what you think you're seeing. I'm not telling you what to see. You are seeing it on yourself. And as this dries, it'll become something totally different from what it looks like when it's wet. You can paint for many, many years, and one day you just do something silly and something outstanding comes out of it. This has happened to me a few times. And this technique of using texture was one of them. I find that you can have very simple lines of resist, and what counts the most is what you do inside of those lines, how you paint, how you bleed and texturize and use the contrast of light and dark and opposing colors and complementary colors. All of those things make for a fantastic expression. Silk artist Karen had a question. She wants to know how I apply the resist to the silk and why it is I do not use pencil on the actual silk to create the resist line. So what she's talking about is actually drawing on the silk while it's suspended in the air with a pencil with the design below. I do not do this because I find that redundant. Why would you do a process that is so difficult and then to make it even harder, do it while it's stretched in a frame? So what I actually do is I'll create my design on bleached craft paper with a black marker, and once the design is completed, I'll spray the paper with adhesive, artist adhesive, and then mount the silk over the drawing. And if you look through the silk, you can see very clearly where you have to apply the resist line. You just follow the line artwork that had been drawn earlier. So you can draw directly onto the silk while it's mounted on top of the table on the paper. And once that's dry, you just peel it off and stretch it in a frame. Now I have to point out that I do not know how all resist work when you work directly onto paper. Some bond and will actually get stuck and create a mess. So far there are only two types that I have worked with them are perfect. And those are GNS dye resist, water-based resist, as well as resist tab.